Hello. I don't know how this is going to come out. The light in here is difficult. Anyway, 15,000 subscriber special. Milestone video. Call it what you like. Yeah, I kind of didn't really know what to do for this. I've been wanting to do it for a while, actually. I hit 15,000 and then YouTube did one of its kind of bonkers things and subscriber count started climbing rapidly and it like hit 15 and a half, and I thought I'll wait until I hit 16 then, and then they did one of their purges and here we are back at 15,000 and something. Yeah, so I figured what I'm gonna do is probably bore the pants off a lot of you because you'll have heard all of this before. It's been a while since I've talked about my gaming history and stuff like that. A lot of you will be familiar with this already, but I've got a lot of new subscribers, and really new subscribers will largely just be familiar with my gameplay videos and maybe won't know a whole lot about me and what I'm about and stuff, so I thought I'd talk about that. Apologies if you've heard it all before, though I am going to cover some stuff that you haven't heard of or seen before as well. So stick with me, please. Alright, what can I tell you? First of all, I'll let you in on a secret. Benway is not my real name. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it ain't that. That is a pseudonym I chose actually many years ago. Back on CB radio, I was Dr. Benway, taken from the character in the William Burroughs book Naked Lunch. And then I moved on to the interwebs, and it was my nickname on IRC. I was just Benway, and then I started doing YouTube, and I sort of wanted people, if someone who I knew off of IRC stumbled across this channel, that they would realise, hold on, that's that geezer I know from IRC. So it became Steve Benway. It wasn't really meant to be like my surname. It was just like, this is Steve Benway, you know, that Benway geezer, you know, but obviously it just looks like a name. And anyway, it's kind of stuck. That's that. I guess I want to kind of talk through my gaming history, but how it also evolved into this YouTube, where I'm at on YouTube and how I got here and stuff. Something like that. I'm making it up as I go along, so I don't know where this might lead. I guess gaming, for me, it started in around 1972. No, I lie. Well, I don't know if I lie or not. I'm old. It's hard to remember. I'm just coming up to 48 for those who wonder. Yeah. I don't know how that happened. I was only 21 last week. But anyway, it was around about 1972 and I started gaming on in amusement arcades. There weren't video games at this point. I mean, Pong had happened in America, but it wasn't over here at that point. Electromechanical games I played. I remember playing Sega's Missile. There is a video of that somewhere on YouTube. Just search Sega Missile, you will find it. I played that. I remember playing some kind of, I don't know if it was Seawolf or something. There was submarine. No, you controlled a submarine and you fired torpedoes up towards ships, and there were rollers that simulated waves and little model ships that went across, and you had to fire a torpedo at them, which something to do with lights and mirrors. You saw your torpedo go up towards the ships. It was clever. I don't know exactly how it worked, but it worked, and I was fascinated by it. And there were other games like that used lights and mirrors and moving mechanical gears and models and things. There were quite a lot of games like that, and I loved them. And shooting galleries that I guess they used some kind of light gun, like, okay, how old are you? Do you remember Tin Can Alley, the toy? I guess these arcade things were like that. You would fire a light gun at a target that I suppose had a light sensor in it, and if you hit it, it fell over. Lots of stuff like that. And that was gaming for me for quite a while. I mean, the opportunities to play things like that were limited, especially given that I was about 4, and the kind of places that had them were places you couldn't really go if you were 4. The Working Men's Club in New Bradwell in Milton Keynes, where I used to live, that's where they had the missile game. No, was that there? They definitely had the submarine thing there. Amusement arcades at the seaside. We went to the Isle of Wight every year for a while, and they had arcades there, and I played on lots of machines at the seaside. And then there were the fair. There was always a fair that came. I lived at Toaster at this time in Northamptonshire. It came to town every year, and they would have amusements in that, though it was mostly one-armed bandits, red ones, so big, lever, 2p in the slot. Played lots of them, but they did occasionally have the electromechanical arcade amusement whatever machines, and I played those. But you know, it was a rare opportunity to play games, you know, when the fair came, or we went on holiday, or we would go to the Working Men's Club in Bradwell. It didn't happen very often, but I had to have a go. And then in around 1974, thereabouts, my mother took me and my brother and sister to the laundrette in Toaster on the High Street, on Watling Street. I remember it really well. I don't know what it is now. I went back to Toaster a year or so ago, and it's not there. I can't remember exactly which building it was, but anyway, she took us. She would take us to the laundrette on a fairly regular basis. We didn't have our own washing machine. It was the 70s. Everyone was poor. Certainly we were, anyway. So laundrette, and as a 6-year-old, that was a really bloody boring thing to have to do. To sit there and you know, laundrettes are never exciting at the best of times, but when you're 6, nah. But this one time we went there, and there was this big machine. It was like the size of a fridge, a big fridge, or maybe the size of a chest freezer, perhaps. I don't remember exactly. It was odd. Probably more like a chest freezer. But anyway, my mum said, stand there, hold that dial. So I did, and I was like, what the hell's going on? And she stuck 10p in the slot and held the other dial and pushed a button, and magic happened. There was a screen, there were bats, there was a square ball, and it kept score, and magic, you know, wizardry, impossible. You can't do things like that. TV screens are for TV, live, news, top of the pops if you're lucky, maybe Star Trek, but not. You can't control what happens on a TV screen. That's impossible. I was gobsmacked. I didn't understand how it worked, and in the end I didn't care. I loved it. I played it at every opportunity, which wasn't nearly as often as I would have liked, but that was my introduction to video games. And I just wanted more and more and more. And then, first experience of Atari, because that was, there were home TV games. I didn't get one until much later, but late 70s, mid to late 70s, home Pong TV games kind of started happening, and I had friends who had them. I didn't get one until very early 80s, I think, late 70s, something like that. But before then, I got to have a go on an Atari. A friend of mine, his older brother, had a 2600. He didn't have any particularly good games. He had Space War, which was alright, but not great. He had Asteroids, which was fun, and he had Combat, which... I just don't know what it is with Combat. People say, yeah, classic game, brilliant, loads of fun. I always thought Combat was shit. It was the game they packed in because really, if you were going to buy a game, you were never going to buy that. Granted, lots of variations and stuff, different modes and all sorts of stuff, but from my perspective they were all shit, because it relied on an amount of sportsmanship from your whoever you were playing with, and the fact that you needed two people. You couldn't just play it on your own, where in all honesty, I'm an unsociable git. I would have much rather played on my own. But you know, when you got the two jets or the two biplanes, you got one flying along and another flying along, and well, unless one decides they're going to turn round and have a go, the game just doesn't go anywhere. And generally the one who turns round to have a go ends up being the one who gets shot. So I just always thought it was shit. The tanks, bit better. Yeah, they were not so bad. But overall I just thought it was a crap cartridge. But anyway, yeah, that was my introduction to the 2600. I got a Pong. I'm looking, when I say Pong machines, I'm looking up there because there are 3 of them up there. And then we moved. We moved house, we moved from Toaster to Deantanger. None of this is relevant. I'm just kind of reminding myself, putting myself in the time frame so I can remember what happened when and know what to tell you next. Brain works weird like that. Yeah, the next thing actually for me was, I'm looking up there. Whoops. God, I'm going to kick my camera over. $19.80, yeah, I got one of them. It is Ball, the Game & Watch by Nintendo, though it was branded Time Out like this one is. This isn't the one I had back then, which is a shame. I got one of these. And I was able to, the score would go up to 999 and then it would stop. And I was able to do that. I could do that quite easily. After a while, practice. I can play video games quite well if I practice, I just don't do that for me videos. Yeah, I got that. Then I got a Galaxy Invader 1000, which is the yellow one. And 3 lanes of, you'd have invaders coming down. It was a cheap kind of, it wasn't crap, but limited Space Invader clone. And then I got Astro Wars, and I mean, it's just a fantastic game. If you've ever had any of those kind of tabletop arcade games with the LED display, they're not even LED, I can't remember what they're called. They're something a bit funky. I had one of them, and I loved it. It was great. I think they do a emulation of that on Android, which I should probably try and... I sort of think, shall I get one of them? And then I think, well, why not just try and buy one of the original ones? I haven't yet. I've got a few tabletop games from that era, but I haven't got that yet. I wanna. Then I got an Atari 2600 in 1983 with Pac-Man, which I ran right around the clock. I mean, it was not a great rendition of Pac-Man, but as a game in its own right, it's reasonably good fun. Around the same time, it may have been actually 1982. Here's the thing. I remember as a kid, when we still lived at Toaster, it was still the 70s, I remember saying to my mother after watching Star Trek, when I'm grown up, I'm going to have a computer. And my mother said to me, and I remember it as clear as if it was maybe not yesterday, but perhaps last week, only really big companies and governments have computers because they're massive and really, really expensive and really complicated. Yeah, so don't get your hopes up, kind of thing. And I was disappointed because I'd seen them on Star Trek and I thought that's just really cool. So, fast forward to 1982. And there's a lad in school who I've mentioned before, but if you're new-ish here, you won't have heard me mention him. A guy called Richard Stone. I don't know if he's even still alive. I heard he had leukemia, but I also heard he got over it. So I don't know whatever happened to him. I went to his house, and he had a Sinclair ZX81. And this was my first ever hands-on experience of a real computer. And I was blown away. I had played with a thing that was like there was a friend of my dad, he was an electrician, and he had built like a space Star Trek-y kind of console thing that went in his garage that his kids played with. It was all flashing lights and dials and knobs. And that was cool, but here was this real computer. And you could program it, which was amazing. Richard was actually, he could program a bit, as I remember. I don't know how well, but he certainly typed some stuff in and it did things. And then he loaded 3D Defender. And that's a game that is actually really surprising for how fast it runs on what is a very slow computer. And I was just like, wow. And then he loaded 3D Monster Maze, and my jaw dropped utterly. I still find that game, on such a limited piece of hardware, absolutely mind-blowingly incredible. It was just like first-person perspective. I understand it's not doing 3D. I get that. These are just screens and it's flicking from one to another. But it was clever. It's convincing. And so I you know, suspend disbelief. You're in a 3D maze and you can move around and holy crap, there's a Tyrannosaurus Rex coming towards you. Run away or get eaten. And I was amazed, and that was it for me. It was like, computers are here. Never mind they are the future, they are the present. I want some of this as soon as I possibly can. About a year later I got one, in 1983. I don't remember if I got the Atari first or the ZX81 first. I got a second-hand ZX81 for 15 quid off a friend with a 16K RAM pack. Who remembers those? And memory wobble. You moved it even slightly and the whole thing crashed, and all that program that you'd typed in for 4 hours was gone. And I didn't have a tape recorder, so I couldn't save any of it. Great. That for me was gaming for the next 3 years. It was Atari, it was ZX81 until it died. It got chronic memory wobble. It just conked out. I moved it, it shorted out somewhere or other and basically never worked again. Shame, but I still had the Atari. And it wasn't until 1986, I mean, friends had got other systems by then, Spectrums mostly. A lot of my friends had Spectrums, I didn't have one, couldn't afford one. Well, generally it was like their parents bought them. But, well, my parents weren't going to buy computers. They weren't interested, they were just toys as far as they was concerned. And, well, yeah, they were, weren't they? But 1986, maybe 85 actually, I bought an Atari 600 XL. But again, they'd reached the end of their production life, if you like. They were being withdrawn, they were being sold off cheap. So I got mine for £30, which was great, except I couldn't find a tape recorder anywhere. And I didn't think that would matter, because the games, you could put them in, play them off cartridge, except I couldn't find the cartridges anywhere. No one had them. Everywhere had tapes. I did have a tape recorder, but nowhere was selling the cartridges. So I had one cartridge, which it was a football cartridge, and I lent it to someone. I can't remember who I lent it to, but they never gave it back. I was not pleased. So that just sat on a shelf. Well, I tell a lie. I sort of programmed it a little bit in BASIC, but same problem as with the ZX81. I couldn't save the programs because I didn't have a tape deck, so that didn't get very far. 1986, I had a job, finally. Well, I'd had a job since I was 14 or 15 something, working in a pub. It was kind of like cash in hand thing. But in 86 I got a proper job earning, well, it wasn't really proper money because it was the YTS, but anyway, saved up enough money and bought an Acorn Electron with a tape recorder and software, Arcadians, and I don't know if Boxer was with it. There was this Snapper Pac-Man clone, Starship Command. Now that was special. That was just a fantastic game. Probably still my third favourite game on the Acorn. But none of those are the reason I bought it. And the reason I bought it was Elite. My friend from across the road had got one, and he showed me Elite, and I was like, 3D wireframe, sandbox, space trading, just the freedom to do whatever the hell you wanted, pretty much, within the limitations of like wireframe graphics and being in a spaceship. Yeah, I had to have some of that, so I bought that, and I spent years playing pretty much nothing but Elite. I never reached Elite status. I don't even know if on the Electron you could. I heard tell there was a bug. May not have been. I know on the B obviously you could, but on the Electron, don't know. I never got beyond Dangerous, but I loved it. And Exile, I played that a lot. Never completed it, but loved it. Fantastic game. Just the physics on it. It was the first time I'd played a game, certainly on the Electron, that had really convincing physics, and the puzzles, and just this element of danger, because it was difficult. It was really bloody difficult, and you'd struggle to get to a certain point, and okay, you could save your progress, but wow, it was hard work. I loved it. And the Electron was my computer. It was my only gaming system until 1990s, probably about 1990 actually, when I got a Mega Drive. And I'd played on an Amiga before this, but they were like way expensive. Yeah, I was working in a shoe shop at the time. Yes. What the hell was it? What shop was it? Can't remember. Shoe shop in Milton Keynes Shopping Centre. And I bought a Mega Drive from Dixon's across the road. Well, I say across the road, it was just across the way. What did I have? It came with Altered Beast, which again, to me, Altered Beast was to the Mega Drive what Combat was to the Atari. It was the shit game they gave away because no one in their right mind would buy it. Now I know some people don't share that view and think it's a great game. I never have and I never will. I've always thought it's shit. It's a pack-in because they won't be able to sell it. And I bought, to go with it, because I really didn't want to have to spend all my time playing that, I bought motorbike game, Brain Re-Engage please. Hang On, Super Hang On, yeah, that. And very shortly after, Afterburner 2. In fact, was it Afterburner I bought? Both about the same time. But yeah, they were the games I played a lot for a long time, until Sonic the Hedgehog came out, and that was just like mind-blowing. I had never seen or played anything like it. I jumped ahead of myself actually on the home consoles, because arcades, I had been playing in the arcades all of this time. Up until about a little bit after this. Yeah, there was an arcade in, well, there were quite a few around where I lived at that time. There was one at a camping place, Cosgrove. They had a fairground and a bit of an arcade in there. Mostly just Space Invaders. They didn't have anything great in there. Probably Pac-Man. But there was this place called the Agora in Wolverton, and it had Atari Star Wars, and that just blew my mind. The thing with the Agora these days is like well, I assume it's still an indoor market, but for quite a few years it was an indoor roller skating place, and I would go there twice a week or thereabouts. In the evening there was a bar upstairs. I didn't really drink there much, it was a bit leery, but there were two arcades. There was one upstairs and there was one downstairs, and the one downstairs had Atari Star Wars, but it had loads of other things. I mean, it was there for quite a long time. When it started out, it was actually really quite basic. It was Asteroids and Space Invaders, and I remember Galaxian coming out and being amazed because it was in colour. I thought, video games in colour? They can't do that, can they? Wow! I was just so impressed that it was colour. But then Star Wars came. Whoa! Star Wars actually, I was going to say I was amazed because 3D vector graphics, but I had played 3D vector graphics before that. Because Speed Freak, yes, you will see on my intro video thingy. You know, the wireframe car? A lot of people think that's a Vectrex game. It's not. It's an arcade game from the late 70s. And I played that a lot. And I was crap at it. There's a surprise. Yeah, that was in that arcade. I thought for years actually that game was called Night Driver, but I found since that that's a completely different game. Other games they had in there, Donkey Kong, obviously 1942, 43, stuff like that. I remember playing those there. Gyrus, iRobot, you'll see that in my intro sequence. It's the flat shaded polygon robot flying towards other polygon stuff. That was 1980. Was that 83? I think it was. It was really early for those kind of graphics. It didn't do well in the arcades because it was so ahead of its time. People didn't understand it, but I played it lots and loved it. Yeah, they had Tempest in there a lot, and it was almost always broke. And I didn't play it a lot. I loved to look at it, but I didn't play it much because it intimidated me. It beat me too easily. I put my money in and bam, it's gone. And when you haven't got a lot of money, you know, you're a kid with your pocket money and you want a bit of value for money, so you don't play the game that's going to kick your ass in 30 seconds flat. But I did like watching it. Yeah. And then there's the game that I remember more for the sound than the gameplay. And that is... God, I can see it now and I'm trying to... Astro Blaster. It had this robotic voice. I've got a video of it somewhere, I think, unless it's one that I took down, but I think it's still there. It had a robotic voice that would kind of goad you a little bit. But more than that, it had this bass tone on the explosions, where when you were in an arcade, all the other arcade cabinets would be competing with each other for your attention. And you know, they'd have sounds that you could hear and think, I know what that is, and go over and watch and play and stuff. But because they were all within much the same sort of tonal range, if there were a lot of machines running, it just became a cacophony and you couldn't make out one game from another. But Astro Blaster, the explosions had this super mega low bass rumble, and it cut through everything. You walked into an arcade, if they had an Astro Blaster, you knew, because everything else was going blah 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 blah, but there'd be this boom boom noise underneath all of the rest. And I to this day I remember that, and just when I see or hear one now, it brings a smile to my face. And then there's Defender. My God, kicked my ass really royally, truly. And the funny thing is, the place actually I remember Defender isn't from that arcade, it's from a cafe around the corner, still in Wolverton. I remember watching, I'd been playing Galaxian and getting my ass kicked, and there was, I was young. There was this older teen on the Defender cab next to me, and he was kicking the crap out of it, and it looked amazing. Because the thing you don't get when you play on emulation or on any of the conversions on home systems, you don't get the weird fading, trailing, ghosting effect that you used to get on the arcade cabinet because they had cheap, crappy phosphor screens. It took a while for the pixels to fade back to black. So the explosion was, it just looked incredible, and Doesn't matter what you play it on now, you will never get that effect unless you've got a really old crappy phosphor screen somewhere. Anyway, it looked amazing. He kicked its ass. I was just like staring at it, gobsmacked. And he played it for maybe 10 minutes before it beat him, and he wandered off, and I stuck my 10p and I thought, I've got to have some of this. This is amazing. About 30 seconds later, I was finished. It just slaughtered me. You play it on a home console or home conversion, and you will not ever grasp the difficulty, because joypad or joystick or whatever you're using, not how it was played in the arcade. Direction control was up and down on a joystick, but that's the only thing that was done on a joystick. Everything else had its own button. So joystick there, except, well, thrust, reverse. You couldn't just click your joystick a different way to go a different direction. You had to press a button to make your ship turn around and go the other way, and then press thrust again. And then you had fire, and then you had hyperspace, and then you had smart bomb. And you got to memorize which of these buttons did what, and they were in awkward positions. There was nothing remotely intuitive about how you had to play that game. So I don't know how much money that teen chap had pumped into that machine to be as good as he was. But to this day, even playing it on a home console conversion with a sensible control layout, I can't play as well as he did. But yeah, playing it in that arcade, for me, 30 seconds and I was done. Hammered, butchered, just humiliated. And I love that about Defender. It will humiliate you. And the sound at the start of it, that big synthesized noise that it makes, when I hear it now, it's just so ominous, so intimidating. It says, yeah, you come near me, I'm gonna kick your ass. And I've never encountered a video game since that quite does that so comprehensively. So that was that, yeah. Then Star Wars Arcade. That for me, nothing touches it even now. I mean, there are better games by far in terms of technical advancement, just photorealism, physics, everything. You know, there are more impressive looking Star Wars games, but something about the way that one plays with the vector graphics and the controller, still never found any way of playing the game at home that makes it as satisfying as doing it with that controller. Just nothing else will do. Yeah, that will probably always be my favourite arcade game. Is just gobsmacking. And then things moved on. Street Fighter 2 happened, and gaming kind of changed a bit at that point. It became all about the beat-em-ups, and then 3D started happening. You had virtual racing, which I never came across in the arcades. I so wanted to play that. Never found it. The best racing, well, the first 3D racing I played was Hard Driving. Played lots of your sprite scaling stuff from Sega. Super Monaco, loved that. God, what's that thing? It's called Gale Racer on the Saturn, and I've blanked on what it's called in the arcades. Can't think of it. Oh well. Yeah, stuff like that. I liked all of them. But then 3D, Virtua Racing, never found it in the arcades. Virtua Fighter, never actually found that in the arcades. I found Virtua Fighter 2, it kicked my ass, but then Ridge Racer. And wow. That's when arcades changed. They really changed. I mean, they were already sort of a bit different. They were getting family friendly at this point. They weren't your dingy, smelly, kind of slightly dodgy and maybe dangerous kind of places. It was dark and you might get mugged for your pocket money. They became family friendly. But I still went to them because I wanted to play Ridge Racer, and to a lesser degree Daytona. I don't know why I didn't like that one so much. I loved Sega Rally. I still love Sega Rally, and in fact, if I can't remember the last time I went into an arcade. Yes, I can. It was forgotten the name of the place. It was at the seaside. It was where James Chipster's Easter egg hunter used to live. He's not there anymore. What's the name of the place? Can't remember. Anyway, they had this Lido there, and there was an arcade in there, and they had Sega Rally in there, and it's like they had Sega Rally in Milton Keynes as an arcade in the Escape Centre. I don't know if it's still there now, but last time I went in there, and that was about 10 years ago, they still had Sega Rally in there, which says something about the quality of the game. Yeah, gobsmacking. So that's the arcade. Back onto the home consoles. Got the Mega Drive. Then I got the SNES because I could. It was like, all right, there's really good stuff on the Mega Drive, but there was stuff coming out on the SNES that I just wanted to try. One of them actually was a tennis game, and I haven't got that one anymore. It's one I should probably get. I like a good tennis game. Super Mario, meh. I got them, I had them at the time, but I'm like, meh, I'm not a Mario fan. But then Super Mario Kart came out, and to my mind, home console games, that is still one of the best. And of the Mario Kart games, I think I prefer that to most of the other ones. Yeah, it's probably the purest of the lot. And then Star Fox, Star Wing came out, loved that. And Stunt Race FX, love that. It's kind of a little bit rubbery feeling and not especially responsive, but you sort of learn to work around that. And there was some other thing, it was like a mech based game. I got that, but I couldn't get on with it. For some reason, and I can't, speaks volumes about it, I can't remember what it was called, but it just plain wasn't fun. And then I got an Amiga, and my computing life changed. I actually learned how to use like a graphic user interface and all of that, and I used Amigas for not just for gaming, though I did a lot of that, and my taste in gaming was actually, it was the 3D stuff. If I wanted to play platform games and arcadey stuff and speedy action games, well, I got a Mega Drive and a SNES, and they just plain did it better. But for 3D, Jeff Crammond's Formula 1, Knights of the Sky, Epic, stuff like that, all kinds of flight simulators, World War II ones largely. I devoured them. I had tons and tons of 3D polygon based flight simulator games and stuff like that. I tried your point and click adventures and found that not only was I not good at them, I just plain didn't like them. And a lot of public domain stuff that you got on the cover discs with magazines. I played tons of stuff that was fairly junk, and one that was actually really, really good called Scorched Tanks. Now, I haven't got a copy of that at the moment. That's one I should probably dig up. There were different versions of it, and one that was kind of midway through its development life was actually the best. They changed it and took away some of the good stuff for reasons that I don't understand. But I had a friend who used to come round weekends, Friday night, something like that, and we would just sit up all night. If we weren't playing Formula 1 or Worms, we played a lot of Worms, we played Scorched Tanks. It was always one that we'd like come back to. Brilliant fun. Yeah, so Amiga. Then tell a lie. Then 32X. I am one of those people who bought a 32X. I had Virtua Racing and Doom. I bought it for Doom, really. And that did weird things to my head. The day I bought it, I just played it and played it and played it and played it. And then when I went to bed that night, I shut my eyes and I could still see corridors and rooms and things moving, and it messed with my head. It was very strange. So there was that. Virtua Racing and Sega Star Wars Arcade, and Team Mech I got later on, and they were the only games I had for it. Couldn't find any other games that were worth buying. I know there are other good games on it, but I couldn't find them. All the local game shop had for it, and only one place was selling them, and I can't remember what it was. I don't know if it was a Virgin or Electronics Boutique, something like that. There were some crappy sports games that I just didn't care about. Yeah, so there was that. Then I sold my Mega Drive and my SNES and bought a PS1. Wow. Obviously, first game I bought was Ridge Racer because it was just so good. Having played the arcade game, it was so close to the arcade game that I just mind blown. And Doom again, and Doom on the PS1 was better than Doom on the 32X. That baby crying in the background. I've got Doom again, but it can't be the same version, or maybe I just haven't reached that level yet. The baby crying in the background was so sinister. It just still freaks me out thinking about it. Yeah, and it was about this time actually that I started collecting retro stuff. I'd still got me Electron. I'd still got me Amiga, which I was using. It was like I'd upgraded it and everything, so it was still fully functional as a modern computer. And I continued using it for quite a long while. But I started going to car boot sales and buying old consoles. I bought an Atari 2600 Junior. I bought a BBC Micro. I bought quite a lot of stuff. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. But it was a beginning, and that was probably about 1997. And I kind of, gaming-wise, progressed, went PS2, PS3. I eventually, in around 2000, 2001, stopped using the Amiga as my main computer, because though it would go on the internet and would do a good bit of what I wanted, which was IRC, it lacked Java and Flash, and in fact the browser I had for it didn't even do JavaScript. So I eventually bought a PC. It was some Hewlett-Packard HP Brio 300 megahertz Celeron with 32 meg of RAM. And Windows 98, not even SE, just Windows 98. And it would crash probably twice a day. If my computer now that I use crashed twice a day, I'd be like, out the window with that, time for a new one. But back then, with Windows 98, 2 crashes a day, that was alright, you were doing fine. Things have changed. Yeah, you know, PS2, PS3, collecting retro stuff. I didn't buy retro off of eBay until I moved in here with Andrea, which was in like 2005. I would buy me retro stuff from Game Station back when they still sold retro stuff, and the local car boot sales. There was a car boot at the local hospital in Milton Keynes, and the Greyhound racing thing. Yeah, there was a car boot sale there, and I'd just, you know, pick up old computers and consoles and stuff. And there was another one actually in Pottersbury, across the road from this cafe. I bought my Commodore PET there for a tenner. Oh, wow. And that was kind of, it was a slow, gradual compression? What? Progression? Yes, that. Just buying things here and there. And then I discovered YouTube. And things changed. It's funny actually, I mean, first video I put up on YouTube, it was nothing to do with gaming whatsoever. I used to hang out on a webcam chat site called Stickcam. It was the first thing I'd come across on the web that allowed audio and video streaming. and you could get an audience, and I did, and mostly they were like American and some South American. There were a lot of teens, but they just seemed to, for whatever reason, be into the English accent and seemed to, for whatever reason, appreciate my sense of humour. And for a laugh, I would read these. They were kids' storybooks, but I would fuck about with them, to put it bluntly. And it went down really well. They found it all highly amusing. So I recorded a video of me doing this with this storybook. I'm going to show you a little clip of it. I'm not going to put the whole thing up. I took it down for copyright reasons because it was a copyrighted work and I'd read the whole thing, and on YouTube that's not good. So here's a little snippet. You can get a gist of what it was I was doing.
Dudley and the Monster. Dudley had slept for a long time. It could have been days. It could have been weeks. Lazy bastard. Now it was time to see what was happening in Shady Hanger. Spring had come and the countryside was buzzing and busy. They obviously hadn't got DDT in Shady Hanger. There were squeaks and shuffles in the bank by the path. Mrs. Blackbird called a greeting to Dudley as she flew off to find worms for her babies. I thought people tried to get worms out of their babies. Others were on the lookout for food too.
Yeah, come away since then, I think. that was YouTube was low resolution back then, and very, you got like something like 3 minutes or 5 minutes, or you were very limited with what you could do. But that was my first YouTube video, closely followed by a video of my dogs playing around in the back garden. I don't know if I still have that video. I don't think so. And then I didn't do anything with YouTube for a while because I didn't know what to do with it. And eventually I decided, okay, I'll just put up a video of my collection. It was my games room, which is not in the room I'm in now. This is the third games room I've had since I've been doing YouTube, and it's the smallest actually, though it's got more in it. I've just crammed it in more tightly. Yeah, I did a video just showing my collection in my games room and uploaded it, not expecting anyone to give a damn. And the response was, well, just people were piling on and watching it and commenting and saying, wow, show us your games. So I did, and I haven't stopped. And that's how I got to where I am today. I mean, things have changed a little bit, but not much. High-ish definition, better sound, better video quality, but I'm still pointing the camera at the TV rather than using any fancy capture stuff, just because it suits me. I still don't practice when I play the game, but my commentary style has developed a lot. I was, for quite a while, I didn't know which was more important. Was it the video game? Should I just play the game and shut up? Or should I do commentary? And if I did, should it be minimalist? And I was quite nervous about it, so my commentary was pretty minimalist. And I thought the game is what's important, not me. They're not here for me, they're here to see the game. But eventually I realised, well, hold on a minute, there are tons and tons and tons of channels with just gameplay and no commentary. So this could be anyone. If I don't talk, there's nothing to separate this from any of the other channels that are doing exactly the same thing. So I started talking more. And then I did this one game, and I think it was called Galactic Attack, but it will forever be known among a certain sector of my viewership as Super Fart Attack. Yeah, and that's, I had so much fun doing it, that video, and I discovered humour. Adding humour into the video worked. It got a good response, and I really enjoyed doing it. And I know not everyone even gets, a lot of the time I'm taking the piss in the videos that I'm doing. There is, you know, there are jokes that get missed. Not all, but some. Some people just hear and think, what is this twat, what's he doing? And maybe don't realise I'm not being at all serious. I think most of you get it. And then I started doing this kind of thing, talking to the camera, which developed into the Friday Talkie, which I did for quite a few years. I'm not sure how many. Do you know how long I've been doing this? 2007 I started, so it's been a while. But in the end, I got sick of the Friday Talkie. It became expected of me, and people wanted, you know, there'd be talk about this and talk about that and talk about something else, and I didn't want to talk about those things. And there was always the shout out that was included as well, and the number of requests to be shouted out. And I tried to make it clear, look, if you ask me to shout you out, I'm just not going to, because that's not how it works. I've got to find a channel organically and like it. It's a really difficult thing actually to deal with when someone says to you, please shout out my channel, and the first thing you think is, nope, you asked, so I'm not doing it. But then you think, well, I'll just go and have a look anyway, and it's crap. It's just crap. And how do you deal with that politely? That's kind of partly why I was like, no, if you ask, it's not happening. Because not every channel can be, well, no, it's not about an ability to do good stuff. It's about putting in the effort. In some channels it was just like they'd point the camera at the TV and record whatever happened to be on the telly. It's not even a video game, or they were uploading someone else's stuff, you know, or you know what I mean. There was no effort, there was nothing, it was just shite. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Not someone who's nervous to talk to the camera. They're trying. I've got loads of respect for anyone who tries. It's just the ones who just don't. Yeah. But eventually I stopped having anything to talk about. To be honest, this video is evidence of that fact. Everything I'm talking about here I've talked about before. I have nothing new. It does reach a point, or I found it reached a point where I had spoken about everything. I had said everything I had got to say. And apart from doing the odd video response here and there if someone else raises a good topic, it's like I've been there, done that, seen it all, heard it all, and I've got nothing new to add. So talkies are few and far between, which is a shame because I enjoy doing it, but what can I possibly tell you? Yeah, but I have learned an awful lot while doing this. How to deal with situations, how to... I won't say how to be successful, because how do you define successful? I mean, what can I did a few videos, sort of advice for people wanting to start a channel. I did a few of those. Do I need to tell you stuff that I said in those? I'm not sure. I'll just a couple of hints and tips, I guess, for new noobs. Yeah, people who are maybe thinking about making videos. I would say yes, do. Well, actually, I would say, what is your purpose? This is something actually, who the hell was it who wrote, I was talking to someone who talked someone out of trying to make a living on YouTube. This is the thing, you will get people, and frequently it's teens actually, you say to them, what do you want to do for a job? And they'll say, I want to be a YouTube star, celebrity, whatever. I'm going to make my living doing YouTube. If that is what you think, hold it right there. Stop. Do not go past go. Do not collect £200. Go directly back to your bedroom and play something on your video console. Because just don't. You're not going to make any money. You're not going to make a living unless you are really, 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 really lucky. I've been doing this since 2007. And in that time, I have met, known, become friends with or at least acquaintances with hundreds of people, if not thousands. And of all of those, of the hundreds or thousands who have made videos and have YouTube channels, the number of those I know who can make a living out of it is 4. Clint, Lazy Game Reviews. Rich, Review Tech USA. Michelle, Manga Minx. Is there someone else? Well, I wouldn't say I know him, but I mean Ashens. Sort of very, very, very vague association. I'm in his book. That's cool. Never spoken to him, but email. Yeah. 4 out of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And, you know, some people who've done it a good deal longer than me, and some who've done it less, but you're not going to make a living out of it. I've been doing it since 2007. I make peanuts. It's barely pocket money, and it doesn't go up. There's a funny thing about it, and it surprised me when I finally realised it. I started making money off of YouTube, or putting adverts on it, back when I had about 2,000 subscribers. I now have 15,000 subscribers, and I make exactly the same amount of money now as I made when I had 2,000, because though the subscriber count goes up and the views go up a bit, the value per view goes down. So unless you have exponential growth in your views, you're not going to make a living. It's just not going to happen. You've got to get in, you know, the hundreds of thousands, 500,000, something like that, before you're going to make a living. And don't kid yourself. There is only one reason to do this, and that's for fun. If you enjoy doing it, do it. If you're looking for fame and fortune, forget about it. But if you want to have fun and meet cool people, you will definitely meet cool people. Do it. It is a blast. I know countless really cool people on YouTube and other places, and we're going to get onto that later. There are just so many. You go to exhibitions or whatnot, and I've been to a few, and meetups and whatnot. Brilliant people, and is a thing. Trolls. I had a worry, because I've been trolled in the past, and I will talk a little bit about trolls and trolling and whatnot and how to deal with them in a minute. But I had a worry when I was like going to some exhibitions and meetings and stuff, is what if that particular troll or this particular troll or whatever is there? They know I'm going to be there. What if they're there? They're never there. I've never, ever, ever... Actually, I mean, I've only ever been recognised in the wild, out in the street once. And that's by a chap who lives in the same town as me anyway. Prey Dog 1. I don't know if you still watch, but hi! You're still the only person who's ever spotted me. No, that's not true. No. Namco's. Yes, he spotted me out in the street in Blackpool once, but he was still going to the same exhibition as me, so it doesn't really count. Yeah. Don't worry about the trolls online. In the real world, they just, unless you're enormously mega famous, they're not gonna bother you. But how to deal with them on YouTube? The comment trolls. I mean, it actually took me quite a long while to learn how to deal with those. Because initially I would try to reason with them or argue with them or point out to them how stupid they were being or how dumb their comments were and how wrong they were and disprove their points and whatever. Doesn't work. It doesn't. It doesn't matter how intelligent your argument is. The moment you argue with a troll, you go down to their level and they're going to beat you on experience. So just don't. My thing now, if I'm being trolled, sometimes I will leave their comment up If it's so blindingly moronic, I will leave it up and other people can laugh at them. But generally, I delete, I block them, and I delete the comment. No replying to them, no nothing, no response whatsoever. I just delete the comment and block them. Once in a blue moon, you'll come across a troll who will just create a new account and a new account, and they'll keep on coming back. But you just block, delete, ignore, don't respond. Anything else invites more. That's all I've got to say about them. I'm inviting being trolled now by saying it, but I don't get trolled anymore. For all that, I've got way more subscribers now than I had back when I was getting trolled a lot. I don't get trolled anymore. There'll be the odd silly comment like, oh, you're shit at this game, or you don't know what you're talking about, or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, you're right, I am shit at this game and I probably don't know what I'm talking about. And they might be trying to be insulting, but sometimes they've actually got a fair point. Frequently I don't know what I'm talking about. But beyond the odd little cutting comment here or there, no, it's not a problem. And it just comes down to, don't respond, don't react. If you don't want to just leave it there for all to see, block and delete. It works. Other things I could say? Audio quality matters more than video quality, I think. If you want to do the whole capture device and all of that lot and go for great video quality, cool, fine, good for you. If working like that works for you, that, fine. It doesn't work for me, but even if you decide to do like me and go really lo-fi, low budget, crappy camera at the TV screen, whatever, it doesn't matter too much if your video quality is not perfect, but you've got to have good audio. It makes all the difference. If people can't understand what you're saying, or they're going to struggle to hear what you're saying, they're going to switch off and move away before you know it. Your message is lost. Your audience will leave. Good audio. It's essential. People ask me, what mic am I using? I'm not. I got really lucky. It's in the camera, and the camera is a Sony Handycam. I can't remember. Something like CX115E, something like that. They don't make them anymore, but there'll be a modern equivalent. It's a reasonably cheap camera, but it's got a good mic and it captures the TV really well, so I like it. There was something else I wanted to say and I can't remember what it was. Don't know. That's probably the best advice I can give to anyone who's thinking about making a channel. Like, do it for fun, ignore the trolls, get the best audio quality you can. The rest, figure it out yourself. Figure your own style. Have a style. Have something. Here's the thing. I didn't know what I was going to do when I started. But I did realise really quickly that whatever I was going to do, it had to be what I wanted to do. And not... I don't do requests. This sounds cruel and harsh and selfish. I don't care what you want. You might want me to do something. You want the Friday talkies. Sorry, I'm not going to give it to you. If you're going to do a channel, do what you want. If you don't know what to do, you probably shouldn't be doing it. I tend to think, I mean, this is maybe me being an egotistical bastard, but I sometimes see people asking their audience, what do you want me to do? And I'm sitting there thinking, no. If you don't know what you want to do, you shouldn't. It's not for me to say who should or shouldn't be doing it, but that bugs me. There's an artistic thing about doing this. Maybe that's probably got my head completely up my own arse there. But you know, you sit here in front of a camera and go blah, or behind it and play a game and go blah. You are you're doing a creative thing. You're an artist to some degree. That might sound totally pretentious, but that's kind of what it is. It's a creative thing, and that's all about putting forward your creative energies and whatnot. It's about projecting your values and your personality. It's about you. This is yours. And I think as soon as you say to your audience, what do you want me to do then? You've thrown all of that away and you've basically become a whore to your audience. I'll do whatever you like if you'll just like me. Sorry, I just don't buy into that. That's not aimed at anyone in particular. I've seen conversations, but it's not aimed at anyone. I've seen lots of people do it, and I don't like it. Be yourself. Do what you want to make you happy. That's what I say. Take that or leave it, because at the end of the day, who the hell am I to say what you should do? That's just my opinion. And opinions are like arseholes. Everyone's got one. I'll move on from there before I upset people. Coming back to me, for those who don't really know who the hell I am and what I do and blah, apart from some egotistical twat sitting in front of the camera, I don't just collect video games and play video. I don't actually collect video games. I collect hardware, or I did. I don't anymore. I ran out of space and money. And I don't collect games, they just kind of accumulate with the hardware. I haven't bought a game in a while. That reminds me actually, while we're on the subject of games, I've got to say thank you. I owe a great big thank you to Steve, 911 Gamer, because he sent me some games. And I'm just going to show you what he gave me. Monster Hunter Freedom 2 for the PSP, which I haven't played these yet because I'm busy doing the Open University stuff, but they're sitting there on the side to be the next things that I play when I play video games. So I don't actually know what that is like. This, I know what this is like, because Wipeout. Now I've got a digital download of this, but I love having the physical copies, so I'm chuffed to have this. And Gunship, which is a helicopter simulatory type thing by Microprose on the PS1. Now, I played Gunship on the Amiga way back, and I didn't even know it was on the PS1, so that's fascinating and interesting, and going to get played as well when I get a minute. Apologies for not having played them yet already, because I've had them for how long is it? It's a couple of weeks. Yeah, I need a weekend to play stuff and record stuff. I will make videos of those, because I like to do that. When people send me games, I like to make videos of them. Even if I don't play or make videos of all of them, I play them all. Yeah. So thank you, Steve. Very much appreciated. I was going to say something else. Yes, actually, because not all of you will be familiar with it, I'm going to unhook the camera here and I'll let you see where I am, because for those who've only seen like me playing video games and haven't seen the other stuff, this is my games room. This is where it all happens, and it's where it's all stored. I'm not going to list everything that's here. You can see it for yourself and maybe figure it out for yourself. If there's not really good light in here, which is a shame. I've got a load of plug and plays under there that there's just not nearly enough light. A couple of Philips CDIs, G7000. Here I am saying I wasn't going to list them all, and I'm doing that. Neo Geo, 3DO. People are bound to ask, what's that? Commodore 64 GS. It's a games console based on the Commodore 64. It's shite, but it's rare, and they sell for quite a lot of money. I bought mine for a tenner on the car boot sale years ago. Pong machines. games, and quite a lot of games. Oh, we're going to have a look at that in a minute. More games. Virtual Boy, love that. One of the most beautiful computers ever made, and probably one of the most expensive 8-bit computers. They made about 8,000 of them, and well, I saw one this week for sale on eBay with a buy it now of £1,100, but that was that ZX Ninja geezer. I don't know what he's thinking of. His prices are ludicrous. Sword M5 down the bottom there, and a couple of MSXs. Video Genie, the mouse belongs to this Amiga that's just here. That's my 060 tower. That's the Commodore shelf. It's pretty much all Commodore. This is the stuff that I would say gets used on a regular basis. It's not that regular these days, but it's the stuff that's all set up ready to go. I just have to like turn them on and they're all plugged into the telly. It doesn't require any extra setting up. That's my Acorn shelf. The Beeb, the Electron, and the, I'd say Archimedes, but they'd stopped calling them that by then, which is a shame. Spectrums, more Spectrums, ZX80s, ZX81s, and another Spectrum. And then we get on to the handhelds. So many handhelds. And then, oh yeah, I was going to say, actually, we'll just show you a couple more handhelds there, and the PSTV. Yeah, I this, given to me by Tia, Dreddy. I had one of them when I was a kid, and it's sitting on this, which I also had one of them when I was a kid, and these, which are over 40 years old, I had those when I was a kid as well. I'm trying to get the whole set. And more games and stuff. Yeah, so that is the games room, and it's where I play my games and record my videos and stuff. This here, when I was talking about I collect stuff other than games, just nostalgia. If I see something that I remember from when I was a kid. I came across this on eBay. My dad had this. He was given one of these, or several in fact, when he was a kid. And this is from 1951, I think, 51, 52, something like that. And I read it when I was a kid. This one is not the one I'm most familiar with, though he did have this, because I recognise certain bits of it. I'll just have a quick flick through. I remember this article. I don't know if I ever read it, but I remember the pictures. And I remember this as well. But I know it's not the one I'm most familiar with. I don't know which issue that was, but I know that because this is not the Dan Dare story that I'm familiar with. I remember a Dan Dare story where they go to a planet and there are giant puffballs that are like growing and taking over the planet. And I don't know which Eagle Annual that was, but it's not this one, which is slightly disappointing. But nevertheless, so cool. It's something about the way kids
boys' books were back in the day. The residue from the British Empire, the attitudes and I think there were bits, certainly in some stuff that I read back then, that were positively racist. I don't know that this is. Certainly it's stuff that my great-grandparents had that I used to read. And you just wouldn't get away with it now. At all. Your tribespeople with the bone through the nose and spears and putting people into big cauldrons and stuff. There's none of that in here, but I read that kind of stuff that was from a slightly earlier era than this, but it's there is something very stiff upper lip about this. Yep, cowboys and Indians. It's great. Classic stuff.
Now, I've probably forgotten half the stuff I was going to talk about, but there is another thing I'm going to talk about. It's kind of the closing piece, if you like. One of the good things about doing YouTube, as I've mentioned, you meet cool people. Also, you get found by cool people. Cool things happen. A few years ago, I was asked by someone who I'd never heard of and knew nothing about, could they use a piece of my music? Because I do music, if you didn't know, or I did. I haven't done any in ages, and I had videos of it on this channel. They're still there, but they're set to private now because copyright trolls. But anyway, they asked me, could they use this piece of my music in a film that they were making? They couldn't pay me for it, but they would give me a credit on the end credits. And I said, yep, sure. And I thought nothing more of it. And I didn't hear from them for a while. I actually forgot all about it. And then probably 6 months to a year later, they sent me a copy of the DVD of the film. And it's called Instead of Abracadabra, and it's on YouTube now. There's a link down there to it. But more than that, it had won a film award in Sweden, because it was Swedish. It still is Swedish, actually. Yes, but Oscar nomination. It got nominated for an Oscar. It didn't win it, but just the fact that it got nominated. And here is, you know, this Oscar nominated film with a piece of my music in it. Bloody awesome. You just never know what's going to happen when you're doing YouTube. And there's another similar kind of thing recently has occurred. A chap called Martin, who I'm not looking at it on the screen now, so I can't remember what his surname is. It's a Swedish sounding name. Sorry, Martin, that's quite embarrassing. I should have written it down. But he has a band, or is the band, called Boy Omega, who I was not familiar with, hadn't heard of, but he asked me could he use some footage of mine, some gameplay, Vectrex gameplay videos that I've got on YouTube, and I was like, yep, sure. And again, I forgot all about that. I do that a lot. I don't know how many bits of my music or video or whatever I used here, there and everywhere by people I've given permission to and forgotten all about it. Yeah, but he came back to me a couple of days ago and said video's finished. It's being released as a single. The album will be released in, is it September? Something like that. And he gave me a link to it, and it's bloody brilliant. So I'm going to do something I don't normally do. I'm going to end this video with his video. He said I can put it on my channel, so I'm going to have it as like the closing piece on this video, because I think it's brilliant. I love the way he's used my footage, but that aside, I think the video itself is great, and I really, really like the music and the song. I've got a thing for like Scandinavian. Is Sweden Scandinavian? I don't know, but that neck of the woods, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Iceland, kind of Finland, all around that area, their films and the music that I hear from there and TV programs, I really like. Probably better than a lot of what you get on telly, like American stuff and British stuff and European stuff. I mean, I can relate more to stuff from that neck of the woods than say Central Europe or whatever, French films, Italian films, German films, and there. But you know, Swedish, Norwegian, Danish, Icelandic, I just love all, you know, love the films, love the music, and this is just another example of that. I think it's bloody brilliant, and I invite you to watch it. I will link to their website. In fact, it's got the URL at the end of the video, but you know, I'll put a link as well. I imagine the album will be available on Amazon. I know certainly some of their other albums are on Amazon. I'm not being paid to say this. Not paid at all. I'm just thrilled to have anything that I've produced being used on something that is frankly brilliant and deserves to be successful. I don't know how big of an audience or how, you know, what their sales are like or anything like that. I have no idea. Are they big in Sweden? I don't know. Have no idea, but they deserve to be because it's great. Anyway, I will shut up now and you can watch this and listen. I urge you to. Please don't just like think, okay, Steve's shut up blathering on now, so I'll go. Give it a listen and a watch. See what you think. Okay, thank you for watching.